Ladies and gentlemen, this is your tactician, Mr. G Coalition, brother number 17, keeping fresh, staying clean, ready to discuss some professional wrestling. Now let's get right into the nitty gritty. This time we talking WWE. Let's go over Crown Jewel. Not gonna do a full-fledged review, obviously, because that ain't my style. So I'm gonna just go over a couple of quick results, and give my thoughts a little bit, and then one particular match. Y'all might not be surprised which one I'm thinking about. Is going to pivot from there to like fantasy booking and how this could have been done better and how things could have developed from there. Because plain and simple, what happened in that main event, Roman Reigns versus LA Knight, let's put it like this. Everybody already knew that Roman Reigns was going to walk out the winner. Everybody knew that LA Knight was not going to take that title in Saudi Arabia. But the thing that a lot of us were looking for was, are you going to be creative with that finish? Are you going to come up with some kind of different wrinkles? Or are you going to at least try to package it in a way that makes it look more epic so that LA Knight looks like he was put over in defeat rather than being just fed to Roman Reigns as just another body for him to beat? We already know which way they went. Everything they did looked good on paper. Probably looked good when people came up with it backstage, but it was the same old rinse and repeat. Just like with Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, it was the same old rinse and repeat. There was no extra special wrinkle. There was no extra care to make LA Knight look strong even within what happened. That's the problem. That's always been the problem with a lot of these Roman Reigns title defenses. The dudes that are involved basically get fed in the exact same way. It's bloodline interference, sometimes light, sometimes heavy, but then when it's all said and done, Roman wins and he gets up and he looks like he dominated, even though we all saw the match and he actually did it. This was one case where they could have and should have done things a little bit differently. But obviously they didn't. So we're going to go over that. First, a couple of quick results to shit that I was paying attention to for that show. Rey Mysterio obviously didn't beat Logan Paul. Didn't retain the United States Championship. Logan Paul, we already knew. Logan Paul is now the new WWE United States Champion. Rey Mysterio has lost that title. I mean, come on. Everybody that's bitching about it, everybody that's pissing and moaning about it, congratulations. You're giving WWE the exact reaction they wanted. And this is exactly the reason why Logan Paul winning this match was the right decision. Hell, in my opinion, I'll go ahead and say it right now. It's exactly the reason why if LA Knight wasn't going to be the man to win the Mr. Money in the Bank ladder match this year, then it should have been Logan Paul. Damian Priest has no chance of walking out a world champion, has no chance of becoming a captivating character on either LA Knight as a face or Logan Paul as a heel's levels. There is absolutely no reason they should have gone to him. Oh, but this can exacerbate the whole tension with Finn Balor and the split storyline and Damian Priest getting kicked out of that. You know what? More on that in a bit. But there's absolutely no reason that they couldn't have found another way to do it without having to throw in the briefcase and waste it on that instead of actually providing an opportunity for LA Knight to have gotten that Money in the Bank, that title match that he's got with Roman Reigns in a little bit more kayfabe sensical manner using that Money in the Bank contract, or Logan Paul trying to cash in on Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title on Raw. There's no reason they couldn't have done either one. Hell, at this point, in my opinion, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I would actually prefer Logan Paul cashing in a Money in the Bank contract to take the World Heavyweight title from Seth Rollins on Raw. One, because Logan would be the perfect antagonist to actually make Seth look like a proper babyface again. Two, because, well, as the first heel champion of that new title, him being a guy who doesn't wrestle every week, but still claims to be working harder than everybody else because of all his business shit outside, that is actually, not even would be, that is, but not being used to the maximum ability, but it is the most annoying antagonistic thing that a guy can do in the post Roman Reigns beat Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 39 and made part-timers the bane of existence again era. Yeah, I'm still harp on that because that is the thing right there. Speaking of champions, Io Sky retained her women's championship against Bianca Belair, as she should have. And it turned out to be thanks to the help of a returning Kairi. Now, the Pirate Princess, obviously, like, the women had to conserve their look a little bit because of the whole, well, not a little bit. They had to come up with a creative way to look like they look as their characters without showing off any skin because of Saudi Arabia and the religious restrictions from the culture over there. But even with that, it actually helped accentuate how Kairi looked like a boss. And she did not come across as, like, innocent in that whole bit of interference. When she pulls Bayley off of Bianca's shoulders on the outside during the KOD, and then freaking nails. And at first, Bianca's just staring at her, like, shocked that she's there, wondering what the heck she's doing here. And then, boom, spinning back fist. The assault on the outside. Eventually bringing her into the ring for Io Sky to hit her with that high precision moonsault that Io likes to do. And when I say likes to do, I mean likes to get the job done with it. 1, 2, 3. Io and Kairi in the ring. Stomping on Bianca. And then setting up for Kairi to hit that patented insane elbow. The best flying elbow drop in the business. And she and Io hug in the middle of the ring. Io looks real happy to see her. Kairi's got kind of this stone face going on, but she does smile a little bit at the end, or while Io's music is on. And Bayley is just looking out there like she don't know what the heck just happened. She don't know what, like, where Kairi came from all of a sudden. And Michael Cole points out on commentary that Kairi's last time in WWE, it was Bayley that took her out. But here she is helping out Bayley's partner in Damage Control retain the WWE Women's Championship. Which, on another creative note, I would have already come up with a different name for it, with an additional name for that Women's Championship. You know what? Everybody wants to talk about the Women's Evolution. People say that they want that Evolution Part 2 pay-per-view back. Here's the deal. I don't care about the pay-per-view, but if you're going to make the Women's Evolution such a big theme, and you're going to have 2 women's championships, and one of them is going to be called the Women's World Championship, then the other should be called the Women's Evolution Championship. So let's pretend for 5 seconds that they actually did that little sensible thing, and Io Sky is currently the Women's Evolution Champion. Right? Let's pretend that that's the deal. So I'm going to address it as that going forward for this post. So we already know the discussion around the community, or the reports going around from backstage or whatever, they're circulating to the community, is that this whole thing is meant to develop a shift in the stables. Io Sky is going to shift out on Damage Control, or at least on Bayley, and it's going to become a deal where Kairi, Io, and potentially Asuka end up forming like kind of a Black Lotus triad type of group of the Japanese ladies on SmackDown. Here's where I'm going to go with this. Io Sky is already the champion. If they're going to do this Lotus triad shit, obviously that this is going to mean the Kabuki Warriors, Kairi and Asuka, get back together as a tag team. But here's the deal. You got to start getting creative now because there's no native English speaker among those three. You gotta install a native English speaker to be a part of that group. Two, you gotta in order to do in-ring promos against opponents and stuff. And two, you need to get creative with backstage skits to have them speak in their native tongue with subtitles and stuff, just like you do with Shinsuke Nakamura on Monday Night Raw. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and come up with a formula for the same deal to happen on Monday Night Raw with two different teams that are running together, actually. And yeah, that's where I'm going with this. As far as managers go, Dakota Kai she's obviously still going to be, is still more fit to be a heel at this point. Bayley is the one who, she genuinely, obviously she sees herself as the standard bearer and wants to be women's champion again, this, that, and the third. But we all know that she's not holding up her weight, in terms of wins and losses, ever since she lost the SmackDown Women's title a year or two back. We all know she ain't holding up her weight in that regard no more. And we also know that she actually, despite her egotistical tendencies, actually cares about her teammates like they're her friends. So here's what you do with that. She would be the one that you turn into a babyface. She's the one who gets dropped from the group. And Dakota Kai joins Io and the rest of the Japanese triad as their English mouthpiece. Then you add a little wrinkle to it on Monday Night Raw, where you got Shinsuke Nakamura being a freaking Japanese supervillain heel. You got Xia Li being a Chinese supervillain heel. Well, I don't know about supervillain just yet, but clearly they're already selling her as being able to kick somebody into having a concussion, kayfabe-wise. Which, you got a lot of people on the Dying Bird app, or let me rephrase a little bit, the app with the Dying Bird. You got a lot of people on the app with the Dying Bird that are belly aching and getting upset and saying that this is insensitive and this, that, and the third, mainly because they're mad that AEW was being told not to do that anymore for obvious reasons, because you courted the wrong audience and you legitimately and you have way too much legitimate unsafeness going on in that company. You can't do an angle like that in AEW without trouble. But WWE is a lot more professional than that when it comes to these things, so they can afford that luxury with the fan base that they actually have that goes beyond bird apps, that goes beyond social media, that goes beyond the internet and the IWC. The casual audience is not looking at that and saying, I'm offended that WWE ran a concussion spot. They're looking at that and saying, damn, Xia Li knocked Candice the fuck out. So now Xia Li looks like a badass. And let's call that a spade a spade. That's the way it is. So you got Shinsuke, you got Xia Li, and then you have another group of agents that a lot of people are not really considering in that regard. You got Jinder Mahal and Indus Sher. What can we do with that? First off, I think that if there was an opportunity to maximize what you could do with that, I would have taken it during Shinsuke's last man standing match with Seth Rollins. I would have had these guys all come in on that match, jump the shit out of Rollins, and ensure that Shinsuke walks out the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. But that's neither here nor there. I just basically spoiled the idea. So you have the Lotus Triad ladies on SmackDown, and then you do pretty much the same thing with Shinsuke, Xia Li, and Indus Sher on Monday Night Raw. And then what you do with that is you pull it off in January, where Kairi and Asuka become the women's tag team champions. Yes, I know the unholy union are a thing, and their whole deal is hunting down the titles, and everybody's cursed until they're the champions again. that sets up your match at WrestleMania, which, yes, would be heel versus heel, but would be two different types of heels. And in a way, you could actually kind of make... Actually, if you look at it, Isla and Alba are perfectly willing to antagonize other heels. Plus, Alba Fire's wrestling style is more fit to being a babyface as it is. And we all know the team that took the titles from them, Rousey and Baszler, we know they were heels at that time. So if you really look at it, you can use this to kind of pull a quasi-face turn for Alba Fire and Isla Dawn for 5 seconds. And that could set up your match for WrestleMania then. You see, I'm already freaking getting creative and I haven't even gotten to my main event yet. This is obviously going to take longer than I want it to. But that's another story for another day. Let's keep going. So you got those two title matches that were both important enough. And obviously, okay, there's your ideas. Or vibes for what they could or couldn't have done or whatever. Speaking of Judgment Day, Cody Rhodes got Damian Priest looking up at the lights. Sami Zayn got JD McDonough looking up at the lights in the pre-show. Solo Sikoa absolutely murdered John Cena's throat, which was already sore going in to sell the effects of the Samoan Spike in the first place, which, by the way, I want to comment on that roast promo from last week's it was taped over a week ago. Aired the night before Crown Jewel. Solo basically takes the mic to say, I'm pissed that I have to wait until we get to Saudi to fight you. So now I'm going to let John Cena come out here and say goodbye to the fans. And Cena's like, that's it? I'm going to cook you in 90 seconds. You a Taz wannabe who's only here because of your cousin. And I've just paraphrased a 90-second cook job in about 5 seconds. But while he was cooking him, he was doing a raspy voice thing to put over the effects of the Samoan Spike, which to me was like, wow, this man sold 3 the hard way. This man sold so damn good for Solo Sikoa with just one little extra character touch that he could cook him 3 the hard way and sound like he's not burying him. Now I'm looking at that and I'm saying, first of all, great job there on that, just from that in and of itself. But then I'm also looking at it like, if John Cena did more things like that when he was active, when he was doing all his cooking and all his false shoots and shit on guys that he was facing in matches, they wouldn't have felt like they were fed to him. He would have helped elevate guys even when he was beating their ass. Even when he was taking 95% of the offense from them and then hitting them with 5, 6, 7 moves of doom and then that's it. After like 20 fucking minutes, he would have freaking been elevating people, not making them look like, oh, they're just scrubs who everything they do barely puts a dent in Super Cena's iron. And I probably would have actually liked John Cena while he was active. If he did little things like that to actually sell for guys like Dolph Ziggler, for guys like AJ Styles, for guys like, I can't even freaking finish naming the list. I'll be here all day if I do that. I would have liked Cena a lot more if he did that a lot more often. If he did that type of thing a lot more often. But he did it this time. And then it leads to the match where Solo ultimately gets him with not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but 11 Samoan spikes. Probably 6 of them were full blast Samoan spikes. And the other 5 were like just kind of little stings little stings to add some afterburn to it. But the point is still this. He freaking destroyed John Cena with Samoan spikes in an animalistic manner that we ain't seen before. Not from Solo or from Umaga or from anybody else who freaking did that move before. At least in the WWE setting. And by doing that, they just made it look like Solo just freaking killed John Cena in that ring. That's something you have to capitalize on as a star-making performance. And you know that they intend to because that's Roman Reigns and The Rock's family. So Solo's going to become a big deal. And before anybody says, well, he's just a fucking big brute. He's just completely green. He's not a guy who can do anything. Look, he's done what he's been asked to do extremely well. Obviously, his role is going to have to expand over time. But here's the deal. We know that he has the ability to talk with swagger and energy and momentum in a similar manner to his brothers, because that's what he was doing on NXT as the street champion of the island before he was called up and made the enforcer of the bloodline. So eventually we'll get that. But even then, I can kind of picture that Paul Heyman is going to be more impressed with Solo to the point where he advises Solo to break away from Roman, and he becomes Solo's wise man over time, especially since with Roman not being there every week, Solo is the man who Heyman has been minding more often than not. Like, that's basically what it is. We can already sniff that little bit of storytelling in the air. Now, on that note, I'm sure there was more stuff. Obviously, you had The Miz's face turn, which they started doing that to kind of set him up as a challenger to Gunther in the future. But now, obviously, they've taken another freaking wrinkle with it, having him interview this Saudi Arabian celebrity guy, and Grayson Waller freaking interrupts his show to try to take it over. Miz takes umbrage to that, and that becomes a deal where Miz and the Saudi dude end up kind of chasing Waller out the ring. And so because of that, look where we're going. And Miz kind of solidifies him turning into a babyface. But and normally I'm of the mind that Miz is far better as a heel. But I think you can have a short angles or stints where he can be a hungry, serious babyface. He showed it during the feud with Shane McMahon. And I think there's going to be another opportunity to show it again, especially since we're dealing with the Intercontinental Championship, a title that he made, that with his smack talk and his character work, made a big deal back in 2016, 2017, when he was holding it, back in the early days of the second brand split. And now Gunther is taking it to a whole new level even beyond that, just by being a freaking boss. So there's that little clash. There's also the fact that, and on that note, I don't see Miz being like a serious threat. I see him being a plucky challenger who just can't be put down easy, but gets destroyed anyway. And by doing that, gains sympathy and respect that he should have gotten for fucking years. But that's another story for another day. We're going to get on that later. Probably in a different video because I do not want to freaking take as long as I usually do with this shit. So let's go straight to the main event. Let's talk about it. Roman Reigns versus LA Knight. It was a good standard fare Roman Reigns main event. But that wasn't enough. The reason that wasn't enough is because you got LA Knight riding on sudden momentum that is hotter than anything that anybody could have anticipated, that anybody would have ever gotten after Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn last year. You wouldn't think that anybody would catch that kind of fire after their fire got snuffed out. LA Knight all of a sudden did. Right off the back of a feud with Bray Wyatt. Literally right off the back of a feud with Bray Wyatt. Like 1 second he's feuding with Bray Wyatt and he's getting heel boos and getting heel reception and whatnot. And then the very next night, the very first show that he does after the Bray Wyatt feud and the Undertaker segment and all that, the very first time he steps into business outside of that feud, his popularity's already exploded like hotcakes because everybody sees how charismatic he is. And that popularity, WWE does not know what to do with it at first, so they hold him off and they hold him off and they hold him off for numerous shows, and people are not cooling down on him. Instead, they're getting even hotter under the collar. Like, why are you stuffing out, or why are you trying to hide this red hot superstar that we all want? This is unacceptable. And he gets even hotter from that. And because of that, Now you got no choice but to put the rocket on him. And he becomes a main eventer. He becomes a main, and this is his first main event world championship challenge in WWE. That's great. But because of those circumstances, you have to do something. You have to make this special. You have to make this more than just your standard fair bloodline interference match. And it's easy to do that in a certain way because you've already set the seeds for it through the whole thing with John Cena. Cena has been backing LA Knight and putting LA Knight over pretty much the entire time he's been back and kind of promoting LA Knight as the next future megastar of the business because that's basically what he is for at least the next couple of years or so. And at the same time, you got the bloodline, obviously, Roman's cousins, Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso, who and when it comes to Jimmy Uso, his credibility is just, to me, his credibility is shot in terms of like being any type of respectable character because of the way that he just crawled back to Roman, which makes sense as a heel thing. But at the same time, it's like, okay, now you better make sure this works because if this story flops for Jimmy as a character, he's fucking sunk. Seriously, he's absolutely sunk if you don't make this work right. But enough about that. Jimmy runs interference a couple of times with distractions and whatnot. A distraction or two, putting the belt on putting Roman's foot on the rope, getting in LA Knight's way and pretty much helping him, and pretty much helping set up Roman Reigns to hit LA Knight with a spear in the ring. Actually, both the spear through the barricade and the first spear in the ring. But curiously, you do not have Solo interfere. That right there is problem number one. Because if you're going to use the freaking bloodline numbers game, as usual, you use it to the max. So I would have it set up to where you have a backstage segment after the Solo versus Cena match where LA Knight is actually going over to Cena looking a little bit concerned, not because Cena's his friend or anything, but because he recognizes out of respect what this man has been trying to do for him and what Solo, the bloodline, Roman's cousins, Roman's backup, just did to this man. So the expectation is John Cena's been trying to have my back and put me over. Solo just freaking murdered his throat. They setting me up to be a man on an island out here. I'm about to get jumped big time. But because LA Knight is the megastar, he got somebody on the phone. And he said, hey, yo. Actually, I don't know if he actually says, hey, yo, that would be a bit of a Scott. You know what? No. Let him actually say the words. If you're going to, everybody's going to freaking call him, oh, he's a ripoff of this guy, he's a ripoff of that guy. A one-time Scott Hall tribute wouldn't hurt anybody. Damian Priest does it all the freaking time with his mannerisms walking down the ramp, with the fact that he uses the razor's edge. A single hey yo wouldn't kill LA Knight. But that's just me talking. As he gets on so while he's like kind of watching the guys put Cena in the ambulance, which yes, I would run that segment. I don't recall if they did actually run an ambulance segment with John Cena. But I don't think so. But I would run an ambulance segment with John Cena. B, I would have LA Knight watching them or like be the guy on the scene to kind of be like, yo, take care of him. And C, I would also have LA get on the phone with somebody shortly, like immediately after that, and be like, yo, hey bro, Solo just completely crushed John Cena's windpipe with that Simone spike, bro. And he did it like way too many times to count. That was savage. Cena, he ain't gonna be back for a while. So you know what that means. They just set me up to go. They just set me up to go into the Lion's Den. You already know what the deal is. I'm already calling you over here. You gotta make sure you get here. All right, see you then. So now you set up the person who's going to come to the rescue, potentially, if there's anybody, to come to the rescue of LA Knight in the middle of this match. So now we're intrigued. Who is it going to be? Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Or is there going to be somebody? Or are they just setting them up? Or, hell, even if there is somebody, is it going to be enough? So, Solo just took out John Cena, but clearly LA Knight still has backup. But who is it? I mean, we already know who. If you look at the storylines, you already know who it is. You would already kind of have a good idea who it is. But obviously you're playing that up on TV. It's like, who's LA Knight calling? Does he have a backup plan besides John Cena? Because if the Bloodline numbers game is what it is, he's going to be destroyed. So here's what I would have done differently in the actual main event match. You have that interesting character wrinkle to set it up. The fact that John Cena being destroyed is a factor in the fact that LA Knight is a man on an island in this match. But he's got somebody on speed dial that's apparently going to come in and try to help him out. We don't know who it is, even though we do know who it is, based on both the recent story with the Bloodline and LA Knight's own past. And also we make sure that freaking Solo gets involved. There's going to be a point where Roman gets hit with like either a second BFT or another big move. Hell, you know what? Take a shot at the whole cosplay of my cousin shit. Have freaking Roman try to hit a rock bottom on LA Knight at one point, and only for LA to counter it, and LA hits the rock bottom on Roman. Just as a little bit of a shout out to The Rock. If we're going to freaking go the whole, oh, you're a cosplay of my cousin route, and Roman's the one who freaking initiated it first by trying to do the rock bottom move beforehand, LA shows, oh, no, you ain't doing that to me, brother. If it's going to go that way, I'm going to do it. Mainly because I don't want to spam the BFT too many times. Because I think he already hits him once. And then Jimmy pulls the guy's leg on the rope, right? Puts Roman's foot on the rope to force the break of the count. So there you already took one BFT. I don't want to overdo that move. So that's why I would do something like a rock bottom type shit. But after that, while he's hitting that move, Solo, this is where Solo... Actually, no, this is not where Solo comes in yet. Jimmy would pull the referee out. And then try to attack again. Actually, shit, I don't know. Would Jimmy have been taken out by another attack, by enough attacks before that, or would... Okay, well, either way, either this is the part where Jimmy gets kind of... No. You don't take him out of play yet. Here's why. Because the run-in after Solo still needs to happen. So yeah, Solo would suddenly emerge by pulling the referee out the ring. Just like he did to screw Drew McIntyre at Clash at the Castle. And Solo would slowly get on the apron and then into the ring. Him and LA Knight stare each other down. Then they come to fisticuffs. And at first, LA seems to be having the advantage, pushing out Solo back into the ropes, running them through Irish Whip. But then Solo hangs onto the ropes on the other side and LA comes over and he freaking kicks him, or LA telegraphs a freaking back body drop and Solo counters from there and kicks him. And then immediately after kicking him in the face, whichever way it goes, whichever way he got that boot to the face, freaking savant kick, thrust kick, right to LA Knight's throat. Or at least sold like it's right to LA Knight's throat. And then that sets up Solo to be about to hit LA with a Samoan spike the same exact way that we just saw him destroy Cena. So instead of running with that or allowing that to happen, now you have AJ Styles, running out through the crowd, getting on the apron, and hitting the phenomenal forearm right in the nick of time to stop Solo from crushing LA Knight. Yeah. AJ just goes on a freaking tear, attacking relentlessly to the point where Solo Sikoa, who just destroyed John Cena, has to retreat. Now, because this is AJ Styles, I would trust him to actually make it look good. Because he's that type of dude. He's just that good. So I expect he would actually make it look good. Like, okay, you can see why him being freaking pissed off balls of fire would make a guy like even Solo have to freaking step back for 5 seconds. And then he hits another phenomenal forearm, this one to the outside, continues on his attack. That's when Jimmy Uso comes over and tries to freaking do something, and he just gets phenomenal blitzed, knocked the hell out. Hell, if there's a steel chair nearby, AJ grabs that and tries to go after the Samoans, and eventually even Roman Reigns ends up stepping in and catching one to the back, one to the stomach, and one to the back. And now it's like, okay, we got to restrain this whole situation. Now the referees all come out because this whole thing with AJ Styles and the Samoans is going to get out of hand if it's allowed to get out of hand. So now you have AJ and the Samoans all escorted from the ring. Notice there's somebody else who I did not name in that equation. So because of that, Roman ends up getting back in, and now him and LA both get back up, and now it's just straight up one-on-one Roman Reigns versus LA Knight. They're basically fighting for the next 5, 6, 7 minutes. And it becomes abundantly clear at that time, whoever freaking hits a finisher is going to win the match. So both guys try to go for Roman Reigns tries to go for a spear. LA Knight tries to go for a BFT. Both guys end up countering each other's finisher at least once during this final sequence, until eventually we get to a segment where Roman is perched on the freaking corner, perched on the turnbuckle, and LA is about to freaking do his running sprint superplex. But Paul Heyman, the wise man, holds LA Knight's leg so he can't even run. Trips up Knight. And Knight holds him in place and eventually just gets on the apron, jaw-jacking to confront him. That's when LA just freaking splacks Heyman right across the dome piece in order to take him down, starts jaw-jacking with him, and Roman takes advantage of that little distraction of time to perch himself off the turnbuckle, and then LA Knight turns around into the third spear of the match. 1, 2, 3. Now, yes, obviously all that did was add a little bit more bloodline interference, but also set up AJ Styles to freaking not only fend them off, but also give Roman a lick of his own. So basically evened out the odds for the most part. So but at the same time, now Roman's lucky that Paul's still around in order to freaking get him the belt, in order to pull that last distraction on LA Knight in order for him to keep the belt. At the same time, here's the other thing they failed to do. Roman Reigns should be staying down on the ground next to LA Knight for 30 to 45 seconds while his music is on. The referee should have enough time to get out of the ring, grab the title, the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship, to grab that title from where Paul Heyman's at, get back in the ring, and put it around Roman's waist before he even moves to get back up. He slowly picks himself up, looks at LA Knight, and is too dangerous, man. And when he lifts his hands up to the sky, he's clearly still favoring some body part, most likely his neck because of the BFT, is what I would go with. And he's looking down at LA, and he's constantly saying, "Too dangerous. That was too dangerous. You're too dangerous." Or some shit like that. Basically kind of painting a picture, and Michael Cole would make a good job of this on commentary, to paint the picture. Number one, that Roman Reigns got lucky to retain his championship. Whether this is because LA Knight is just that good or because Roman was just that caught off guard by how good Knight actually is, he was not prepared for the fight that LA Knight would give him on his own. He is lucky that he had the bloodline. He's lucky that he had Paul Heyman. Otherwise, he wouldn't be walking around with this title. You really press that point home. You have camera shots of both Roman and a dejected look and an angry, dejected, defiant-looking LA Knight trying to pick himself up as well, but not managing to fully get up until after Roman has left the ring. And you have Michael Cole stress the point on commentary that Roman Reigns got absolutely lucky tonight to be able to keep that belt. If it wasn't for literally everything that the Bloodline did, from freaking destroying Cena before the match, all the way to what both Jimmy and Solo tried to do during, and even Heyman at the end, Roman would not still be champion. You press that point home. LA Knight, legitimately, without that one little piece of additional bloodline interference that he wasn't able to account for with AJ Styles, LA Knight could easily be walking out the champion right now, and Roman knows it because he is caught up in how dangerous LA Knight was tonight. He's constantly mouthing that he's too dangerous, too much of a threat. Now Roman recognizes what he just walked into. What almost happened. And more importantly, if LA Knight and AJ Styles are actually aligned, if they're actually on the same page, if they're actually in cahoots, then Roman's problems are not done yet. They probably just went from bad to worse. So you put that idea over. And that would lead, obviously, to SmackDown revealing that, yes, AJ Styles was the guy that LA Knight called in. Yes, they are working together. Yes, LA Knight has a relationship with the OC. That's when I would bring back Anderson. I don't know if Gallows is... I don't know the extent to Doc Gallows' injury, but depending on it, I would not have him come back before Survivor Series, because here's what I want to do. I don't know all the other Survivor Series or War Games matches that should happen in this time, I could try to map them out, but I'm going to take too long if I do. So instead, I'm going to just map this one out. It should be the Bloodline. And listen, we're going to go into this. If you want to talk about making NXT go more than just developmental, if your NXT is legitimately going to be like the third brand, so to speak, this is how you do it. Or this is a step that you take towards that direction. You already had Braun Breaker you already had Roman Reigns instruct Paul Heyman to be in Braun Breaker's corner during one episode of NXT. So that's how you run. That's where you go with it. And with his feud with Von Wagner, we need somebody to be watching the OC's back to neutralize Paul Heyman if need be. Oh yeah, Michin exists, but actually, you know what? Yeah, we can go with two different people in that role to put the numbers kind of against the Bloodline for once. And let's see how they react to that. But anyway, Bloodline at War Games, it's this match. It's Roman Reigns. Now, I know Roman's apparently not slated or not planned to work Survivor Series, but in my opinion, fuck that. You have to fucking do something now. You have to do something. I don't give a shit. You got to do something. Because this is ridiculous. This whole idea that we're going to just have... that Roman's going to get to just miss every single show. He's going to do like 3 or 4 They're already openly talking about the fact that this man is only coming on to defend his freaking title 3 or 4 times a year, and we're celebrating him being a champion for 1,200 days. They're talking about this now. It's actually now a plot point. Then why are we celebrating this guy being champion for over 1,000 days when he's only defending like 5 days a year? No. So I would actually, if I'm endeavor. I'm asking Roman Reigns to continue to continue showing up, to continue making the rounds, and to be there at Survivor Series again. And the Survivor Series War Games match this time is Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, Solo Sikoa, and Braun Breaker versus LA Knight, AJ Styles, Carl Anderson. You bring back the Machine Gun without Gallows, because their fourth man is the guy that Braun Breaker is currently feuding with on NXT, somebody else who they kind of see money in a little bit, not to the same extent, Von Wagner. And because you have Von Wagner there, his manager Robert Stone, that puts both Mr. Stone and Mia Yim in the corner of the OC, which puts them the Bloodline at a numbers disadvantage. Let's see how they handle that. It can be the story right there. Let's see how they handle that. So to me, you set that match up. You set up the relationship, the good bond of AJ Styles and LA Knight remember back when they both kind of worked together a little bit during AJ Styles' brief little run on NXT, his little visit to give back to that brand, and he feuded with Grayson Waller at the same time that LA Knight came back, and the intersection of LA Knight coming back to action to continue his feud with Waller at the time. Yeah, that's where we started from. You establish that connection that he and AJ Styles have, and you kind of set him up. Hell, LA Knight already looks kind of like he could easily blend in with the OC. Well, not blend in, but like kind of stand amongst them as a standout, as like the standout top star, even if he's not actually a member of the group. We could have their support. We could easily do that. He already looks the part. Just freaking do it. And that already by itself makes the OC more important than they were and have been the entire time they've been there. Both LA Knight and AJ Styles being there. Kind of similar to what you're already doing with the LWO, where you have the legendary Rey Mysterio, you have the leader, the Legado del Fantasma leader, Santos Escobar, and now you got Carlito. So now even the support guys, which are Joaquin and Del Toro, they're even like considered important, not because of themselves, just by osmosis of the people they're around. It will be the same thing. It has been the same thing for Anderson and Gallows, but this is where you maximize that. Gallows would come back at some point after Survivor Series, but before the Royal Rumble, if indeed he's able to. I don't know the extent of his injuries again, but that's how I would do it. You hold out on his return until after Survivor Series, even if he's already cleared, which I doubt. But you would bring him back in time for the Rumble, if he can, is where I'm going with that. So now, with the ability to run that angle, I would also be able to. So yeah, okay, so I'm looking at the OC with LA Knight. Oh yeah, and also, here's the stakes that I would put into that Survivor Series, into that War Games match. The NXT member of the winning team gets to challenge for any main roster title that he wants. Effectively, this is the call-up for whoever wins that match. And this is where I would have, let's say, you know what? Anderson is like kind of the lowest man on the totem pole here. As much as I like him, he's kind of the lowest man on the totem pole. So go ahead, have Braun Breaker actually pin him to secure the victory for both the Bloodline and for himself. And because you've already established this kind of working relationship of sorts between the Bloodline and the Judgment Day, Braun Breaker immediately, as in the very first episode of Raw after Survivor Series, makes his presence felt by taking out Seth Rollins and declares that he's going to be the next challenger for Seth and the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Now, obviously, this is not... Obviously, look, okay, you're debuting this kid on the main roster here. He's going to end up taking an L, but first you have him freaking dominate with a bunch of W's against everybody else beforehand. Against a lot of other people, I should say, beforehand. While also continuing to antagonize Seth at the same time. And because of that working relationship with the Bloodline and the Judgment Day, he clearly has the Judgment Day in alignment, and it's kind of helping, like either they're helping him out or he's helping them out and shit like that when it comes to taking out Rollins and freaking establishing the next champion. Now this can end up being a thing that ends up exacerbating the issues with Damian Priest as a member of that group. And because you can do that, the tension with Priest and McDonough and Balor, you can continue to kind of play off that a little bit. Maybe not Balor to the, or at least, actually, you know what? You don't freaking, no, Finn and Priest have been kind of getting along a little bit better. Ever since like they won the tag titles back, Priest, like Finn has been more on Priest's side than anything else. Let that be a smokescreen. I bet it is a smokescreen, but here's how you can run with it. You can add the tension with McDonough, because McDonough seems to be real bent on helping Breakker out. Even more than the actual Judgment Day members. More than the actual members. And Priest would eventually be like, whoa, what's going on? Why are you the one who basically pulling us into helping this guy? Now, eventually, Rhea claims she's not the leader, but she's the strategist, pulls rank in that regard, and basically says, we have a working relationship to dominate the company. Breakker is a part of that. So I'm asking I've been advising JD to take charge when it comes to that investment, so to speak. Basically, the hinting at the Bloodline Judgment Day co-op, and saying that because Braun's a part of that, even though he's not an official member of either group, he's a part of that co-op in that sense. So we're going to help him beat Rollins for the title. And at that point, Priest has to start looking, even though Rhea doesn't say it, but Priest now has to start looking at the situation wondering, do they even want me to cash this in? That's when we get to the freaking Royal Rumble, which is when I think the Breakker versus Rollins match would happen. And in that match, obviously, you freaking go through all the bells and whistles and all that, in terms of like Breakker being like a young, hungry, vicious stud, trying to bulldoze his way through Rollins to get the championship, but Rollins being like a crafty, wily veteran babyface who can see through everything that freaking Braun tries to do. And because of that, he's able to keep himself in the game just by outmaneuvering and countering and things of that nature. And eventually, he tries to go for a spear and ends up in a pedigree and a stomp, but Breakker has to kick out of the first stomp. And we're already in the era of finisher kickouts. He has to kick out of the first stomp. But maybe you then get him with a second one and a Phoenix Splash or some shit like that, in order to actually win the day. Or you do one better and just have Breakker get disqualified by freaking hitting Seth with a blatant low blow, because he'd rather do that than fucking eat now. But you do it in like a kick. Actually, you know what? No, fuck that. Don't have him get DQ'd. We don't need a DQ Dusty finish for this, because it would feel like he just gave up. Because with what I'm about to do in the post match, it'll just feel like he just gave up on becoming champion. That's not what we want. So yeah, have Seth have to hit him with a second stomp in order to beat him. But yeah, it was enough to knock him down for the 3 count, but it wasn't enough to fully knock him out. So this time, we would actually have him, instead of, unlike what they did with Shinsuke Nakamura at, trying to remember which show, was it Payback or something? I think it was. Unlike what they did with Shinsuke Nakamura at Payback, Braun Breakker ends up getting back up and attacking Seth Rollins, A, while he's still in the ring, and B, while the show's still on the air. You haven't broken out to commercial or to the trail or to you haven't broken out to commercial or to whatever trailer you got to do to get into the next match because it's not going to be the closeout. You don't break into what's going to do what you got to do for the next match until after Braun has already attacked Seth, and also Braun is still in the ring to attack Seth. So now Damian Priest comes out during that attack, and he tries to cash in his Money in the Bank. Judgment Day comes out like almost kind of trailing behind him, like they kind of caught off guard, but they do see the moment anyway, and it's almost like they want to support, but instead, Breaker takes offense to Priest cash in and waits until after the bell has rung to come in and attack Priest with a spear, which technically he wins the match, but obviously he don't get the title, and his briefcase, his cash in was just completely ruined by Braun Breaker. So now Judgment Day is coming out, or they're ready. They rush the ring, and it looks like they're about to freaking get. And they're basically confronting him, yelling in his face, looking like they're about to freaking beat him up. But then you have to get suspicious because why didn't they already just start beating him up then and there? So just 10 seconds later, they stop yelling at him and jaw-jacking with him. You see Priest picking himself up, and now they all jump on Priest. Okay, Finn and Priest are still the tag team champions, right? Oh, long story short, I'm going to set it up where the Creed brothers get like big momentum going against every single tag team on Raw and even one team on SmackDown to win a number one contenders match from SmackDown, as to say, to win a number one contenders match. And ultimately, they end up beating the Saints of Fate either right before the Royal Rumble or at the Royal Rumble itself. And yes, I just called them the Saints of Fate based on Edge's idea for them. That would be, if they had a tag team name within the Judgment Day, that would be it. Finn Balor and Damian Priest be called the Saints of Fate, especially since they're the guys that Edge had brought in. That would actually work. So the Creed brothers would have beaten the Saints of Fate for the tag team titles already. So the rest of the Judgment Day would already have their incentive to beat the shit out of I go down with you, dog. And actually, that can be a thing that was set up by McDonough. And McDonough got chased out the fucking ring. And got chased away from them because of it. Because McDonough made a mistake that cost Priest that tag title. Again. And Priest was like, get the fuck out of here. You're never going to be a member of the Judgment Day. You're done. Get out. And it looks like Finn is and Finn plays like he's supportive of it, but you can kind of tell that like he's looking like, okay, he's looking like kind of shady, like there's got to be some kind of different fixing for this or something like that. And I'm looking at it in that sense to where, okay, you've had the Ripley interaction that says that JD's been setting up Breaker on her and setting up to help Breaker on her orders or on her strategic advice, so to speak. Then you have the fact that that same McDonough cost Priest and Balor the titles again. Priest kicked him out of Judgment Day. Balor seems to be backing him up, but kind of has a bit of an ulterior look on his face. And Priest comes out to cash in Money in the Bank. Judgment Day looks like the rest of Judgment Day looks like they're caught flat-footed. Like they're just struggling to catch up to dude when he's making his move. And then fucking Breaker busts in on him. They come in and they act like they're mad they come in and they act like they're mad. Dominic and Balor, I should say, come in and act like they're mad at Breaker. But then McDonough shows up on the outside as Priest is getting up, and he says, that's who should be here. That guy should be with us, not him. He should be here. He's the real member of Judgment Day. Priest is a nobody. He's still hanging on to the guy who brought him into the group. He thinks that this is different. He's not about what we're about. Take him out. And Balor and Dom both look to Ripley And she gives the nod, and they look to break her. And McDonough gets in the ring, and the four of them just start stomping the shit out of Priest. Now, if Rollins wants to be the true heroic babyface, now you can do a thing where he comes back to try to make the save. Because again, he was the guy who chastised Drew McIntyre for not doing the same thing when it comes to Jey Uso, when it comes to the New Day, hell, when it comes to Seth Rollins himself. They all freaking chastise him for that, right? Okay, well, here's what you can do to make these guys look like true baby faces. You can have the New Day and Seth Rollins all... You can have, first off, the New Day run out to the ring at the same time as Seth Rollins gets back up, and all three of them attack the Judgment Day, the new breakered up Judgment Day, with Breaker, Balor, Dominic, and JD, as they're beating up on Priest, and you have them make the save for Priest. And you kind of create a strange bedfellow situation where now that becomes an alliance. Because it's like, throwing him in the hat with Sami Zayn and them, that's kind of old hat. I don't even want Sami Zayn's feud with Judgment Day to continue on forever. If anything, you can pivot him to being a challenger for the Intercontinental title for Imperium as well. Or you can actually pivot him and Jey Uso into the tag team division, because it's a lot more of a natural fit for Sami and Jey to be a team than it is for, say, Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. And Jey and Cody just freaking lost the tag straps. We already know Cody's whole game is for him to try to win the Royal Rumble again and then make his way over to SmackDown in order to fight Roman Reigns. Well, no, that's the angle he's trying to go for, to get back to Roman at WrestleMania 40. So let Sami and Jey kind of become that tag team and have them basically, like, you throw them into the hat with the Creed brothers and Imperium and DIY. And yes, I said Imperium because the whole Kaiser and Vinci thing, there's a way to pull it back together. I believe that shit was set up to fail, in the sense of Vinci should not be a freaking silent mute nobody. He had a personality going when he first broke away from Imperium for that little stint on NXT 2.0 and got his new name and the world-class sportsman gimmick. He had a little bit of a clever, witty bad guy personality going for himself, but then they brought him back into Imperium and then proceeded to have him basically just be a silent mute. Meanwhile, Kaiser is getting all the character work. He's the one being promoted as this A-class specimen. He's got this A-plus specimen, I should say. He's got this freaking video package putting him over as some kind of quintessential Renaissance man, model, illustrious, fashion plate, or whatever the hell the deal is. But meanwhile, Vinci is just hanging around being a silent nobody, being a silent minion. And Kaiser browbeats him to make up for the fact that for the fact that he's the recipient of Gunther's discipline. And so because of that, Vinci, and even with all that, Vinci basically says nothing. So you turned Vinci from a guy who could have been an interesting character, hell, a guy whose interesting character beats would have fit well being incorporated into the Imperium gimmick to make them more presentable on the main roster, besides just Gunther being a badass. You've taken him from that to being so nondescript, as he's just the third guy in Imperium. He's just a silent guy who teams with Kaiser and follows orders, and that's it. He's nobody. To the point where him being a tune-up match for Tommaso Ciampa, challenging to getting ready to challenge Gunther for the Intercontinental title, becomes the lowest rated match, the least viewed match live in the history of Monday Night Raw. Vinci has been set up to fail by Triple H for over a year. And in my whole opinion, you got to freaking pivot back to the world-class sportsman gimmick. You got to do a thing where Kaiser is responsible for a loss and he still tries to freaking get on Vinci's case. And then Vinci finally gets on his ass about the fact that you called me back here to Imperium in order to help out Gunther, in order for us to restore the sanctity of the mat. I walked back my world-class lifestyle specifically for you guys. But here you go, treating me like I'm nothing but a monkey, like I'm nothing but a minion, like I'm just there to follow your orders and take your lashes for you because you can't handle being disciplined by the ring getting on. And now you're going in the business for yourself. You're having this video packages, calling you this A-plus specimen, putting you over as this Renaissance man, as this illustrious model. Are you here about Imperium, or are you here for yourself and you're just using me as the fall guy for your agenda? And this creates a thing. This now can create a situation where both Kaiser and Vinci are trying to take on Gargano and Ciampa one-on-one. They both lose, and this sets up the table for Ciampa's challenge for the Intercontinental title to also include Gargano in some way. And Gunther's thinking they're going to make a handicap. They're going to be making a 2-on-1 handicap match. Actually a triple threat, but it might as well be a handicap. So that's how he's looking at it. So now these guys in their bickering has now set up DIY to basically be able to double team Gunther for the title. So now you can set up a scenario where Gargano and Ciampa have to beat both of Imperium in order to both get the title shot. If they don't beat them, then they have to fight each other one-on-one to see who becomes the number one contender for Gunther's title. And you do a segment, a freaking, heading into that match, you freaking do a vignette. I would go this far. Do a vignette. First off, do a couple vignettes. One, a vignette of highlights for DIY, showing how good they really are. And you have them beat one of the teams that the Creed brothers would have already beat as well. In order to highlight the fact that, yeah, they're damn good. They're a good team. They're a big deal. But then you also have Gunther put over, and you also have another vignette where Gunther puts Imperium back through basic training paces, to where, like, you guys don't have the right to be arrogant anymore because you're bickering and your agendas and what you guys have gone into business for yourselves. Now I'm in danger of being doubled up on for that title. I'm being doubled up on and having two guys who are best friends with each other, both coming after me for my championship and putting me in jeopardy because of your BS. We're not having that anymore. Now they go through freaking super hard basic training and shit. And that could be like the vignette, and it's like full on off location training facility type of shit where they're not even it's not even at the arena. You just straight up do an on location vignette, an on location scene of Gunther abusively training Kaiser and Vinci, training from hell, Spartan way, whatever you want to call it, to try to put them back into paces, to try to put their paces back on, and this is how we do it, and get back into business, back into Imperium business mode. And you have this happen. You have DIY looking strong and looking like they're about to go back to their classic hits, and you have Imperium basically put through training from hell in order to rediscipline them. And that puts over both of these teams heading into this match. And this is big stakes because not only is this is a big stakes tag team match between these mid-card acts that now actually seem to have some type of character to them, some type of life to them. And it also helps in this tag team match is also going to be involving potentially setting up what's going to be the situation for Gunther in the Intercontinental Championship. So in effect, you're killing two birds with one stone, two divisions with one stone here. You put Kaiser and Vinci back together as a team by kind of, or like not even back together as a team. They haven't broken up yet. You kind of re-solidify their stand as a team by forcing them to both be disciplined by Gunther in this way. And you have DIY kind of being put over as their team. But they're not full on a tag team yet, in the sense of like having picked up, having like fully coordinated and synergized and everything else, for the simple reason that it's been a few years. Plus the fact that Gunther is would be there at ringside, and he obviously has that stake when it comes to his title. So now you've set the table for this match, but you've also set the table for DIY to be able to take a protected loss. And Imperium get their shit back together with Gunther's interference, and that forces Gargano and Ciampa to face each other one-on-one to determine who gets to fight Gunther for the Intercontinental title. That would probably be at the Rumble. And Ciampa would be the one to beat Gargano because obviously the story has been aiming towards him being the challenger. But Gargano still shakes hands with him, hugs him, and all that. And like, we're boys, we're friends, and agrees to have his back. But at the Rumble, you do a thing where you set up basically a mystery attacker plot that looks like the friend did it, but this time it would make no damn sense for it to actually be Ciampa because he could have just been destroyed himself if he did that. So instead of allowing that to freaking fester for more than a freaking hour, the very next time Ciampa gets interviewed, right before the title match, Gunther interferes and reveals that Kaiser and Vinci did it. So now any hope of double teaming or triple teaming against Gunther to cost him the title is now kaput. It's straight up just going to be Gunther and Ciampa, and Gunther fully believes that there's absolutely no way in hell Ciampa can beat him now. And Ciampa says, you know what? I'm still going to beat you anyway. And when Johnny gets back up, you guys are all going to have hell to pay. Gunther, of course, beats Ciampa to retain the championship. And of course, you end up setting up, and of course, now we can properly set up both Kaiser as the A+ specimen and Vinci as the world-class sportsman as a functioning tag team, as a part of Imperium. And now you have your setup for a whole fatal four-way or tag team turmoil type of situation, whatever you want to do, for the tag team titles, involving, at the very least, this is how I would go with it, the Creed brothers, which the defending champions are Creed brothers, Imperium, DIY, let them pick up momentum again, and not even either. At this point, I would anticipate that Eric is coming back, right? Raymond Rowe, or whatever you want to call him, from the War Raiders, War Machine, the Viking Raiders. You set up these four teams to now be in contention against each other for the tag team titles heading into WrestleMania, and there's your match. So see, that one little wrinkle, that if you had taken the time to develop it, to make LA Knight look like a stronger challenger, hell, and you know what, this whole OC thing could have freaking set up for AJ to get his next. The fact that he would have walked back the guy who just destroyed John Cena would also set up AJ Styles. So you could have done this to elevate not just LA Knight, but also AJ Styles back to that main event level. With the OC in tow, making the OC as a group feel more important, with AJ being their leader and LA being a guy who they're associated with. So you could have elevated LA Knight even more, AJ Styles, the OC as a group, Braun Breaker, Damian Priest babyface run, which would no doubt be exacerbated by a straight up, they switched out on him for JD and Breaker. The Creed brothers as tag team champions, DIY the proper course correcting of Imperium with Kaiser and Vinci. You could easily have done, you could easily, in my book, I would have used this one little thing that this one main event with LA Knight and Roman Reigns. You get a little more creative with it. You throw in more bells and whistles. You do a little bit more psychology to put LA Knight over. You bring AJ Styles in and make him be the guy to make the save during this match. You set the table for the OC versus the Bloodline to be a thing, featuring a Braun Breaker, featuring a Von Wagner at Survivor Series War Games. Make Breaker get the W, which elevates him. Set him up for a title match with Rollins. Do those things, and he can easily, just from that one main event, from that one match, if you could have gotten a little more creative, this is just an example of what could have been done. Other people could have probably come up with better ideas than me. But from just that one match, if you just got a little bit more creative with that one match to make sure that LA Knight looks good in defeat and that AJ Styles is rightly set up as the next challenger when he comes back. You don't wait until after SmackDown. You do it straight up at Crown Jewel. You just had Kyrie come back at Crown Jewel. Why not do this too? But from that one wrinkle, from that one little decision to be a little more creative with this one main event, so much could be set up for the next several months, for the road to WrestleMania, and even for WrestleMania itself. So by making it just a paint-by-numbers bloodline match, by not getting extra creative to establish LA got somebody to try to even the odds, to try to neutralize the bloodline, because it needs to be a thing. That needs to be a thing where guys going into these title matches with Roman Reigns understand that the bloodline's going to help out, is going to help Roman out. And so I got to have somebody watching my back. That needs to be a plot point, which is why AJ Styles works perfectly. If LA Knight's got him on speed dial and he comes back, because we already know that he's not legitimately injured, he's just been taken out in kayfabe to sell the program. So he could easily have come back at Crown Jewel. We were being told he's going to come back on this next SmackDown anyway. Why not just make him come back at Crown Jewel? That should have been the easy play. By establishing that LA Knight's got AJ Styles on speed dial, and AJ Styles making him look like the next challenger and be the next challenger. We already know he has the OC. So that has to be a plot point now. The bloodline is going to back up Roman Reigns. His opponents know they better have someone watching their back. And now you have situations where that numbers game is going to start to not look so fancy for the bloodline. And they got to get creative. And they got to get... And Roman Reigns especially has got to get good. And I mean actually good. In terms of like a character standpoint, he has to be stronger again than he has been over the past few years, when he's been just leaning on his cousin so much. He's got to freaking get back to being that to not necessarily that one against all mindset that a big dog had, but at least the mindset of, I got to be able to take care of my own business in case my cousins can't have my back. And make him have to be stronger and be more credible in the face of that scenario, constantly rearing its head now, to where people are anticipating bloodline interference, and because of it, they step in the way. And you continue to run with that. And that, to me, and that right there would automatically make the bloodline more interesting. Because now they're dealing with crews now. They haven't proved that they're the strongest crew on the block. Instead of just being able to take out anybody they want 1-on-5 or 1-on-3 or whatever the numbers are. And just like that, you can easily do better storytelling for that. It is so easy. Just get a little bit more creative. And just like that, so much can be done. With a single stroke, so much can be changed. So much can be done right with a single stroke that WWE, in my opinion, failed to do in the case of Roman Reigns versus LA Knight. I'm not even saying LA Knight should have won the match. I'm saying make it a little more creative. I'm saying do a little bit more. I'm saying add more wrinkles to progress the bloodline story. And yes, this would actually progress the bloodline story, because it's like, how long has it fucking been that they've been running roughshod like this and people still think that they can take Roman Reigns all by themselves? That's ridiculous. You should have done it to where LA Knight was counting on John Cena to help out in case they interfered. But because Cena wasn't there, he had a backup plan. And AJ Styles was that backup plan. And LA Knight's cool with the OC. And AJ Styles is the next challenger. And AJ Styles has the OC. And when Cody Rhodes faces Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40, assuming that that's the plan, he's got backup of his own, his damn self. With Jey Uso and Sami Zayn. And hell, even if you have The Rock, if The Rock actually does come back and he's the man that faces Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia, Jey Uso is his family, and Sami Zayn was the guy who Roman Reigns, whose friendship with his family was destroyed by Roman Reigns, so they could easily be back up to The Rock too. This LA Knight has AJ Styles on speed dial thing could have easily been used as a setup for all of that. To be the pattern, where now the bloodline has to expect that people are going to be watching each other's back in these title matches against him. And so they have to deal with that. And Roman Reigns has to get back to being able to rely on himself as well when things go south and they get driven out. You could easily, there are so many freaking storytelling beats that could be played forward. That could have been played forward with just one match. You could still do it, but it won't resonate the same. Or it won't have the same amount of consistency that it could have had if you had done it right with LA Knight. People want to say that, you want to talk about the rising tide that lifts all boats? Yeah, they missed the ultimate opportunity with Cody at WrestleMania 39, but there's still chances to do shit. There's still chances to pull that type of vibe and that type of dichotomy off, and they still haven't capitalized on all of them the way that they needed to, the way that they have needed to. And that, to me, is like, you look at the WWE and it's like, okay, they're doing great money-wise, but from a product standpoint, there are things that they could be doing so much better. So I do not want anybody to get confused. I am not a one company fucking guy when it comes to this. When it comes to when it comes to people making mistakes, when it comes to people needing to get cooked occasionally. I'm not over here planting a tribalist flag for either McMahonism or the AEW cult. I'm not here for either one of those fucking shits. You can kick rocks if that's what you expect from me. Point blank. Because that's not my program, that's not my jam, that's not my game. That's not an insult. That's real. Stay gold, everybody.